Hi everyone, today's Vipers lesson is all about vocabulary questions. So let's have a look at our models and guided text. So this chapter is called Falcon's Edge. There were 5 men sitting around the fire, huddled together in the Heret Mountains in the northwest corner of Afghanistan. Although it was May and the plains were dotted with spring flowers, up here, 5,000 feet above sea level, the wind still came rushing around the corner in icy blasts, and the temperature tumbled towards zero once the sun had set. The men had erected a tent made from woven goat hair and tied down with long ropes nailed into the hard ground. They had rested here for 3 hours and now squatted down with their backs to it, waiting for their meal to cook. The horses that had brought them here were tethered nearby. 5 men and a boy. Alec's rider came out of the tent and took his place on the rough piece of carpet that had been set down for him. He examined the food that was bubbling away in the metal cauldron in the middle of the fire. It was some sort of lamb stew, and he had to admit it smelled delicious. The men had barely spoken to him since they had picked him up at the rendezvous point, a day's ride away from on the other side of the Afghanistan border. He knew that they were Kochis, Afghan nomads, and that they were loyal only to themselves. They would have been paid to bring him this far, gold, weapons, food, or all three. He wasn't sure if he trusted them. Certainly from the moment they set eyes on him, they hadn't trusted him. He wasn't sure if he trusted them. Certainly from the moment they had set eyes on him, they hadn't trusted him. They had not been told why it was necessary to escort a 14-year-old English boy into a landscape that really could be described as the middle of nowhere. They knew only that he was important. He had been brought to them in a Lynx Mk98, the British Army primary battlefield utility helicopter, said to be the fastest in the world. It had landed on the outskirts of the town of Yazdan in Iran, and that had told them something at once. It could not have been there without the permission of the Iranians. The British and the Iranian government working together. This was serious. The food was ready. The leader of the Kochis, a man Alec knew as Rafiq, wrapped a piece of cloth and laid out several pieces of flatbread, which they would use as plates. There were no knives or forks. He scooped out some of the meat and vegetables and handed it to Alex. Okay, so when we see vocabulary questions, they will often have these question starters that are here. So you might be asked, which word tells you that? You might be asked what key word tells you about a character or a setting or a mood. You might be asked, find one word in the text that means. So lots of them mean different things. So some of them you will just have to go and find a piece of vocabulary even from the text. Some of them you will have to explain the meaning of the vocabulary, and sometimes you might have to give a little bit more of a longer answer depending on the question type. Okay, so here is your independent text, so you can either pause the video to read this or you can go and look at the PDF, and then here are your questions.